Welcome to the Smart Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. Today, it is episode 74, and I am talking with probably the best creator I've ever seen. That's a big statement.
Especially with me sitting next to you.
It's all Ken. Today, this person was on my club hockey team, was the captain when I was a freshman. He was a senior. And he went down the street. He didn't go to my school. He went to the best design school in the country and possibly the world. So today we talk about what it's like to be someone who's an artist, a creator in the world. He studied industrial design, what it's like to transition from college where you learn certain things and then get to the real world, and it's totally different. We talk about Fiverr and Upwork and all these just competitive platforms where now you're going against probably the best designer in Germany or in the Philippines or whatever country. You're on a global scale. So it's a different world. There's a lot of misconceptions. We cover them. We cover like how to think better and really get to the root of whatever your problem is so you can create a solution. We got everything, Belky. We got everything.
I'm stoked.
If you want to find Ryan, and we talk a lot about his Instagram and go through his content, so follow along there. He's r.biery. That's r.biery. And you can also find him on his website, ryanbiery.com. This is a good one, Belky. I'm glad you weren't here. I started the podcast a little bit nervous. We haven't seen each other in like 4 years, and this is the first time someone's in the studio that isn't Henry. So I was sweating. You'll hear my little rambling rant intro, but it's good. So leave a review if you like it. That helps us get more cool people on the pod. This is episode 74 with Ryan Biery. Biery, what the fuck's been going on? It's been like 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. I think in terms of the hockey team, you were probably the loudest one just right out of the gate. I remember I came onto the team and like, because you're tall, you're like, what, 6'4"? 6'4", that was going to be my guess. 6'4", big captain, just like riling the troops from day one. And we were a fucking hodgepodge team of like, you were good, I was kind of good, a couple other guys on the team, but it's like 50-50 because we were just accepting everyone. But you just came in and, I don't know, it was a different vibe. Like I wasn't used to the Biery vibe. You're just a totally new animal. And I was talking to Ian about this too. We're like, Biery, he's unique, man, in terms of just being a badass dude. But all right, so Biery, what first got you into club hockey? Because that's where we met, but you're a RISD student. So how did you make the transition over to club team?
At this point, it's been so long, and I've told this story so many times that it's more of a mythology than a true story, I think. But the way I remember it is I had made the decision to go to art school and pursue design as a career. So the best schools in that category are generally small, generally private, generally focused on art. There's a couple exceptions, but RISD was number one in the country when I accepted. And I had sort of just given up on hockey. They had the Nads, which is like a big joke. Like we existed for people to laugh at us. The mascot is a big penis named Scrody.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I mean, eventually I got some of my friends in that costume and it was cool bringing them around to parties and stuff. But I missed the competitive, serious side of hockey. And I knew that my days were numbered if there were any left at all. And Brown and RISD share the campus, so I was working out at the Brown gym, and I saw Jay. Do you remember?
I don't
Jay?
think. Well, what year were you like? Because I was a freshman when you were a senior.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't think I ever met Jay.
Okay, so Jay was one of the captains with me. I think the year before you joined, and I saw him at the gym wearing the club hockey shirt, and I was wearing my USA. Blah, 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 New Jersey tier XYZ gear. And so we just got to talking, I think, while I was spotting him. And he asked me if I still played, and I told him yes, and that I was a freshman and everything. And so he invited me to come practice. And some of the other guys that I think were a little bit before your time, like Eddie, Kamal, Nick Bartos, Pat Hollenstrager, were enthused and told me to keep coming, but I had to pretend to be other people and, sign the rosters with a different name.
Oh, so this was because we were kind of like 50-50 legit.
Mm-hmm.
So you still had to pretend to be a Brown student?
Yeah. This is when we were still in the ACHA.
Oh, yeah. With that, we were kind of serious, but like, I think because we haven't updated, like honestly, the website wasn't updated from like 2010 to when I joined in like 2016 or whatever. And it still had all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't think we're.
By design, my friends. by
right.
design.
We tried to update it and like we literally couldn't because we're like, who the hell created this website? Where is it hosted? Like it was just a weird, issue. But that was just.
Yeah, it was a combination of things. And I think that most of the time I was on the team, it was going through a transition phase where there weren't enough serious hockey players at Brown to field a legit ACHA team with like 20 players. And I think that that's partially due to its size, but more so due to the culture at Brown. Like, I think a lot of those, it took me longer to get there. And I don't know where you're at, but in the time since college, I've sort of let go of the like competitive sports thing, like the hyper masculinity of it all. And I think that a lot of the people I met at Brown, at least when I was out partying and I found out they played hockey and I invited them to come play, they were just like, yeah, LOL, nah. Like, I don't want to come play.
Like they were too, why didn't they want to play?
Because they had gotten into Brown, like they were pursuing studies. They were sort of like taking their life in the direction that it's probably still on right now.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, I think that, to be honest with you, like a big part of where my head was at while I was playing was either like holding on to something or trying to prove something to myself, like that I was a serious hockey player and I was going to make this serious and drag everyone along with me and like you know what I mean?
That was the vibe. Okay, I was trying to figure out like how to properly define the Biery vibe, but it was like we're kind of a joke team, but at the same time super serious. And I think you brought the serious shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Ma and I kind of brought that after because you kind of passed the torch off to us after that. Mm-hmm. And then very quickly we like, since Ma and I were both serious, we got sort of like a little bit of momentum and we turned into like a legit team.
Oh, sick. That's so good to hear.
I know you missed the good wave, but then we lost our goalies because Ian was trying to do CS and be a beast. And then Pruz is just Pruz. And yeah. That honestly, that's my favorite is like the team is just so fucking like diverse in terms of one, you get art school kid, but like,
right.
Like you wouldn't tell. I don't know if there's like usually you can tell like people dress a little bit quirkier or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
But like you're just Biery, normal one of the boys. And then like on the side, like even seeing on Instagram now, like you're doing all this crazy stuff that we can't fathom because we're not creative for the most part at all. Like we're just kind of, I don't know. We're just not on that side, but you have both sides of the brain. It seems like more than anyone else.
Yeah. That it was sort of all part of, I was like, I had a lot of internal conflict in college over all of that stuff. I feel like now, hopefully, maybe this is wishful thinking, that people feel less trapped in like cliques or like cliches, and they don't feel like they have to be like an art kid or a hockey bro or something like that. I mean, that's what Yen tells me. My girlfriend is a teacher, and she says that it's not like that anymore. But at the time, it did feel sort of like I had to get my hockey jollies at Brown and be on the club team, like make that as serious as possible. Like I was just insistent on the fact that, that was going to be like high level hockey, regardless of whether it was or not, regardless of whether people wanted it to be or not, regardless of whether I was at that skill level or not. And it was hard, I guess, to reconcile all those things. And like in the time since, I've sort of marinated, and like all the different ingredients in the stew have turned into one homogeneous
it's literally
flavor.
It's this melting pot of like college is just like testing you on every aspect of your life, and like sounds like you pretty much figuring out the direction. I don't know. Who knows if you figure it out? You're a couple years beyond me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but like you kind of find your way in the real world as you apply those pressures. But what was interesting to me was like, I remember that I think the first actual memory of you was coming onto the team, and like, I think to all the freshmen, you were like, right now is the best you will ever be in hockey. So fucking crush it, because it just all goes downhill from there. And I'm like, all right, well, fucking time to step it up for Biery here, because
that's where I was at. That's what I was telling myself, was like, you know, I wasn't playing D1 or anything, but like, you know, that wouldn't stop me from being good. And like, I think did carry that into my professional life, because I feel like I had a little bit of entitlement or something, that like I felt I deserved to be competing at a higher level, like professionally in the design world. And the truth is, looking back on it, that I was wrong. But what helped me actually get to a higher level was to accept the fact that no one can stop you from doing good work. No one can stop you from playing good hockey. Like if you want to drop in on a men's league C game and score 12 goals, like the other people probably won't like it, but like they literally can't stop you from doing that. And it's true. Like you don't have to be working at like an IDEO or a Frog or a Teams Design or one of these like AAA studios to do good design work. You can do good design work anywhere. And the company might not have the resources to make it real, or the resources to compensate you for that quality of work, or like the awareness to acknowledge that they may not realize that you're good because they just don't have a sensitivity for it. But like, yeah, you can always just bring your A game to any situation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, were you always, I want to attribute it to you, but like, were you always industrial design focused? Or I feel like, I don't know if it was you or some other RISD friend that said like, I think I asked like, oh, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, ID, because I want a job after school. Or like someone from RISD said that, because I feel like there's that pressure. But did you come in thinking industrial design, or were you like just art on the wall? I don't know what other aspects.
Full on. I was full on ID. Like I've always been, even in hockey, like my favorite part was always the gear. Like I was the kid in the pro shop, like looking at the differences between the X40 and the X60. Like what extra stuff do I get? Like, do I get a lighter toque? Do I get a carbon fiber tongue? Like what's the difference in this season's equipment versus last season's equipment that makes me have to have it? Like what's the difference between the Vapor 30, the Vapor 40? And you know, like, oh, this year the sticks have a larger carbon fiber weave. What's that all about? Oh, it's this thing called Techstream versus like regular carbon fiber. And I've always been into cars, and, you know, like they all have four wheels. They all take you places, but there's a difference between like a BMW and a Hyundai. And like, what is that? What are these magic curves that make something more appealing and irresistible, like something that I covet? And that's what I was going after. I think RISD's program was pretty heady and more focused on like personal discovery. And so a lot of people discover that they don't want to do ID, or like that they're not interested in styling, or that's not, that they want to like solve all the world's problems by inventing things. Some people discover that they want to use the tools of industrial design to make fine art. And I guess the way it shook out for me is like, the way I'm doing it now, I'm doing industrial design in like the most basic traditional way. Like
when you think of industrial design, like Ryan Biery comes to mind as the person doing it.
I wouldn't say that, but I would say that like the industrial design that I'm doing is the industrial design I signed up for.
Okay. So that is like the RISD curriculum. Honestly, all I know about it is like I hear like you sit in a place like this for hours on end and people just complain about how absurd like Brown was relatively simple or like pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And then just like whenever I talk to a RISD person, it's like, dude, you don't even know what we go through. Was it like that crazy for you, the actual workload?
It can be. I think some people are sort of, I don't know which is which, sadists or masochists, but the pain almost became like bragging rights. Like there are office cultures where everybody is always like, oh, I'm so busy, I stay up so late. It was definitely like that at RISD. And I think that if you did end up staying until like 2 a.m, it's because you were on to something and you had to see it through. And like you would be making your popsicle stick spatula or whatever the project was, or like you would be trying to disassemble a pencil sharpener and rearrange the components in a new housing of your design. And like you were still developing the necessary skills to complete that task and do it well. So you're working slower for sure than a professional a couple of years out of school. But I think more than that, it's just like one thing leads to another. Like you try to build something, that sparks a curiosity about like a possible riff or an evolution on that idea. And so then you build that one, and then you build that one, and then you build that one. And like, that's the way that it's supposed to work. And that's what takes you into the early hours of the morning. But sometimes it's just deadlines. Sometimes it's like the teacher is forcing you to draw 100 toothbrushes and you're on number 60 and it's 1 a.m. and you have 40 left to go. Sometimes people that honestly are just like fucking around in the studio and should be, I mean, like that's part of college is fucking around. Don't get me wrong. But like, if your goal is to go home at 10 p.m., then just fuck around less.
If they're like, what was it, draw like 100, was it spoons or
toothbrushes? That was what the fuck was it? Yeah.
So is that, I don't know if that's like, do it in a different style and you have to do it 100 different ways. Like, what is that? Because I'm curious, like, actually, like, how do they teach you how to look at objects differently and how you can redesign things? Is that their process usually is like, take it and do a bunch of iterations and see which one's cool, or what is it like?
So, not at RISD. I think that our program was mostly focused on functionality and like what problems we could solve with functionality. So like, let's say you got a computer mouse and you can move it around the table and then there's a button to click on stuff, right?
Got this little sexy
maybe
thing.
Yeah, you have, that's why I brought it up. And you got a right mouse button that brings up a context menu. That's probably like the OG computer mouses. It's 2 buttons and then a ball on the bottom that tracks movement. And then over time, it's like, okay, well, like we're interfacing with all these websites where you have to scroll down to access more content. And right now we're clicking and dragging on this bar. So let's give them a wheel. Like that was a big breakthrough. Sometimes people are playing games and they want to do this repetitive task where every time it's the same and they're counting their mana or they're bringing up their inventory or they're like, whatever, they need buttons on the side. And so like the RISD program would say, the way that you come up with the way you come up with new ideas is you analyze the problem so thoroughly that the solutions become obvious, and you either sketch the solutions or prototype the solutions, and then test them to identify the best one. And that's definitely a school of thought. I think there's another vein of design that's what I would call styling. And that's like cars, sneakers, toothbrushes, razor blades, where like everything on the market is doing functionally the same thing. And your goal is to just give it a new form that it's never had before. So RISD didn't really do a lot of styling while I was there. The type of exercise I described with the 100 toothbrushes, that's what it would be. Like, so you can compare an Oral-B toothbrush to a Colgate toothbrush to a generic brand toothbrush and all the grips look different. They have different shape rubber overmolds on the handle. They have different clusters of bristles on the head. And that's what you're drawing 100 times. It's like, do we want the bristles at the core of the head to be a circle? Do we want them to be a rectangle? Do we want them to be in groups of 3? How about the handle? Does it have a swoopy parting line between the rubber and the hard plastic? Does it have ridges around the outside? Like, does it have a special spot for your thumb? What shape is the special spot for your thumb? And every time you ask one of those questions or try to come up with alternative solutions to those questions, you do another drawing. So you draw the toothbrush, you move it aside, draw a toothbrush, move it aside, draw a toothbrush, move it aside. And that's why you would draw 100 of them, because your first idea is never the best one. And you want to be able to make a decision between multiple options at the end of that exercise.
It's a fucking decision fatigue, though. I'm thinking like going through 100, it's like, geez, that's a day exercise in itself. So that's basically like the style side and then the function side, but RISD's mostly function. And
yeah, and sometimes it's not even products anymore. Like a lot of the people I graduated with are doing user interface or user experience now. And that type of education you get at RISD is so well suited to a user interface problem, because all it is problems and solutions. It's like, we're designing a time tracking app for freelancers. What do they need to do? Let's make a list. Put everything they need to do on a separate post-it note and hang it up on the wall. Like, okay, so for each of these, they need to track their hours. They need to mark these periods of time with a client. They need to categorize it between like ideation, refinement, meetings, deep work, shallow work, whatever. And then they come up with the best way to lay all of that out visually, the best way to allow people to input that data, analyze that data, generate invoices with that data. Like, and even though there is no physical product, even though at the end of the day it's all just pixels changing on a screen, there are identifying problems and coming up with solutions to them. And the end deliverable is an interface or an app or a screen.
It reminds me a lot, and probably my probably the reason why this class let RISD students in so much is entrepreneurship and like creating businesses, and you want to find people's problems and then create the solutions. Basically, what you're doing is that, like, do they say go out and just watch the user using whatever it is, or like what is the normal protocol to figure that stuff out?
Everybody has a different opinion, and there's a couple formal like frameworks for it.
I don't even know, honestly. Since we don't, we could probably take these off if you want.
Oh, okay. I feel so official keeping them on.
Oh, you want to keep them on? All right, let's get it. But
yeah, like there's a couple different formal frameworks that have been like crystallized as books or like white papers by the really big design firms. And I am cynical. I believe that there's no one right way to do it. And these things, like you could look up a framework like jobs to be done or how might we, or I'm having a hard time coming up with other.
What are you saying? A framework is like, that's the question you ask, or?
Yeah. So with the how might we framework, you start out with like, what is the problem? So I was recently designing an air quality monitor, and the problem was people don't know if their air is clean. And that you could have a whole meeting about that. Like, some people might say that's not the problem. The real problem is people are scared of the air, or like people are worried about their health, or like that's the core of the whole thing. And then so you start asking these how might we questions, like how might we show them the number of pollutants in the air? How might we reassure them the air is safe to breathe? How might we show them that the actions they're taking are having a positive impact on their air quality? And how might we show them that change over time? And then the next phase is like, what's stopping us? And so it's like, okay, how might we show them the change over time? What's stopping us is we're only taking one measurement. So then the solution becomes obvious. We have to take these measurements at intervals so that we can show them the change over time. Like, I'm just making this up, but it's very easy for a designer or a design firm to hold a workshop and bring a bunch of like non-creative people or like MBA types in and include them in the process and start having them do these exercises, because they can come up with those questions, they can come up with those answers without doing a single sketch, without uncapping a single marker, without building any models. And my cynical point of view is that those exercises exist so that you can get buy-in, because normally what happens is when you come up with an idea, you're the only one who cares about it, and you're pitching this to the client and they're like, why should I invest $1 million to manufacture this? And you're like, because I like it, because I think it's cool. And unless you have somebody on the inside who's fighting for it and saying like, I like this idea basically because I came up with it. Yeah. I did the Post-it. I wrote this on a Post-it, and that's the one that we chose, and that's the one we based the design off of. So like, it has to go. And I say so because I'm Warren Buffett or like or whoever the decision maker is.
So what is your opinion when they have people from a more business side come in and try and work with you? Like, is there any general tension between like the designers that have like the creative side and then someone that comes in from business in the real world?
No, I don't think so at all. Like, I used to feel like the ideas we were coming up with were sort of, now I'm really getting it in the monitor. Check. I used to feel a lot like we were at odds because they just didn't get it, or like I'm the visionary and they don't understand. But that's not it at all. Like, at the end of the day, they're the ones I'm asking. I'm trying to get them to believe in my vision, and like I'm trying to get them to believe in my story, and they won't if it isn't going to make them money.
Right.
Like, that's the
you kind of need that like check and balance of like,
right.
Be as realistic as possible with what's going to bring in dollars.
And I feel like it's my job to understand them and like not waste their time showing them stuff that they're never going to do, not waste their time showing them stuff that's like a bad fit for their brand or like that consumers won't buy. So if we disagree, I blame it on myself. Like, I haven't done my job well. Did they like at RISD have classes where you kind of get the business side too, like mock real world stuff? Or like, I'm trying to think, translating what you learned into the real world, is there a big gap, or was it pretty like they taught us very well in terms of what it's actually going to be like? Professional experience is always more valuable. I think that the role of an art school education is, in my opinion, twofold. The first is to get you to a place where like, what it feels like to have that first idea. And then it's like, okay, how do I riff on this? How do I riff on this? Like, one thing leads to another, concept generation. And that's not that's not an easy place for most people to get to in their own head. And so like, it's like working out. Like, they force you to go there. They put you there over and over again. And then over time, it's like meditation. Like, you can just put yourself in that headspace on demand. And that is the single most important skill, I would say, for a professional designer. So in that way, it was very applicable. And then the second is, like the thinking and I already talked about that. The second is the skills, like the actual drawing, the rendering, like what is the level of deliverable? Like, how do you teach the students what regular, normal, appealing proportions look like, what appealing surfaces are, like what are the visual motifs and styling themes of this era? And right now it's a lot of minimalism. Like a lot of it was informed by Apple in the 2000s, and we're still in sort of that minimal space, but like there's some other stuff breaking in, like really cool grills and textural patterns, like on the Nest smoke detector is a really good example of a cool grill, or like the Jawbone Bluetooth speakers are a really good example of cool textures. And I don't think they did as good of a job at that. I think that when I entered the workforce, I had good ideas. Like I was able to come up with lots of good concepts, but the drawings weren't good, so they weren't taken seriously.
That's almost the opposite what I'd expect.
Oh,
or
really?
Like, can you see a progression of your drawings like right after school to now, and it's just like night and day? And
Oh yeah. Check out my Instagram, r.biery.
literally, we can.
Like,
I wonder if
yeah,
you have
dude,
some
it was rough, and I had to really, yeah, you got to
those are
further
further
back.
You got a shitload of. How long does it take? And we'll probably put up like on the YouTube video all of these
Yeah,
as we're scrolling, but like.
Scroll up. I didn't even post them for a while because they were so bad.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Here,
this
if
the
you go
first
up
one?
a little bit, I can point out some stuff. Like, so those like the one above the chair.
This. Here, you
Yeah,
can- you
those
can also control
those
it
were
from-
tube amps, and like, I mean, if I was just gonna critique this as if someone else had done it, there's a lot going wrong here. First of all, like the shading is just super heavy. Like these shadows are too dark. The light doesn't feel directional. When you're doing sketching, you want it to feel like there's a single light source that is creating highlights on surfaces like this and shadows on surfaces like this. This perspective on this one is way too extreme. Like
The one in the top left, you're saying. Just so
Yeah.
like, this is also a podcast, but well, it'll be tricky there. But so the top left is just the not the best perspective, you're saying?
Yeah, so if you've ever taken digital photos before, you know that there's a difference between like a 35 millimeter lens and like an 80 millimeter lens and a 200 millimeter lens. Like, and so if you're drawing something really big, like that's huge, like a building, then you want the edge on the top of the building and the edge on the bottom of the building where it meets the ground to converge relatively close to the building. That's what extreme perspective looks like. And that on an object this small simulates a wider angle lens like a 35 millimeter. The opposite would be what we call an isometric view, where they never converge. And this edge and this edge are perfectly parallel.
Okay.
And I want something a little closer to isometric. And so like basically what I did, just because like I'm interested in personal growth and like I wanted to be more competitive and like get cooler jobs and just like be a better designer, was I started doing all this stuff just for myself, like for personal benefit, like for personal growth. So like anything, basically if you see anything that has this logo on it, like this triangle circle shape, nobody paid me to do it. I just did it for my own self. And so like this sketch of the video game controller, I would not ever do anything like that at work because it takes a really long time. Like that one probably took 10 hours just to do that one drawing. And that's bizarre. Like that is.
Well, what makes it take so long to do that design in particular? Is this, wait, so is it by hand and then you translate it to the computer? Like what is the actual process?
So with this one, I'll answer the questions
Yes, I am.
in the right order. So you can see these faded lines behind the dark black ones, right? The like feathery, blurry gray lines.
Yeah.
And those are construction lines. So basically what I did in this instance, and I've gotten to a point where I can skip a lot of these steps for efficiency, but on this drawing, what I did was start in my notebook with a pen and draw this controller from a perfectly top view. So I'm not worried about perspective. I'm not worried about showing like the thickness of materials like you can see on this D-pad. I'm not worried about the cast shadow or anything like that. It's just like a straight on cartoon video game controller, like the way anybody would draw it. And then what I do is then I start plotting out the perspective. So I draw this ground plane, this rectangle here around the edge of the shadow.
So it's on the same plane as the shadow, basically.
It's the plane of the table that the controller would be resting on.
And as if the light is directly above, or like not, I guess light if it's a shadow.
Yes. And then I take that straight on view, that top down view. Here you can see it like ghosted in, these buttons. And I fill this box with it. So like the bounding box of that thumbnail sketch gets pulled and matched to that ground plane I drew. And then from there, it's easy. Then you can see all these little vertical lines. It's just a matter of like, how high off of the ground plane is this button? It's this high. And then it's on an angle because it curves it's scooped. So we change the angle of this ellipse to reflect that. And so you can get the feeling like these buttons are on a curved surface. And then you just start building depth to everything. And it's all basically an advanced version of when you were a kid and you learned how to draw cubes.
Right.
You know, it's like 1 square, 2 square, connect them with lines.
And so now people they'll be like, oh shit, that looks how it should, versus before it was like, they almost couldn't take you seriously from the start because it'd just be like, this doesn't look right.
Yeah. I think.
I was listening because I remembered all the fucking Fetty Wap from
all the Fetty Wap I played in college.
Yeah, I was reminiscing and I was like,
I love Fetty Wap.
What the hell how'd you get this cool ass view?
It should be F11. Maybe it's reverse function. Take me back to Chrome. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically I went from sketches like this, which are kind of like heavy and clumsy and in my opinion ugly, to
that's the knife one, just for we'll pull that up later. Oh, so very quickly though. Like I don't know the date difference there.
They were taking so long. Like this was like this video game controller that's fully rendered, that includes all the shading and colors and materials, was taking me like a whole day to do. Like there's a time-lapse video of this garden hose nozzle on YouTube. And now, I mean, so the big change, I guess, was like, first I had to learn how to do it, like time not considering, like just figure out how all this stuff works, figure out how perspective works, like just do it, period, take your time and learn. And then the challenge after that becomes do it faster. And so now something like this I can do in like 45
the coffee
minutes.
Pot.
Yeah, the most recent coffee machine is like, I can do that in like 45 minutes now. And it's not as realistic, but it gets the job done. So
that's like, what is the actual design? Like, where are you?
This was for...
Is that Photoshop that you do that?
It's all done in a program called Sketchbook Pro.
Oh, yeah, that's what
tablet.
I did, like these little designs.
Exactly, yeah, same. Yeah.
I just drew these on there, but you're doing the actual good one. Yeah, because that's what I love, the perspective planes. You're just talking about it. Like, their tool is so fucking good. I almost learned it myself, but it's like, shit, I got to go to art school for that. But it sounds like you don't, like, did you end up learning this through YouTube, or where do you learn it to like actually get really, really good?
I was going to it was a couple things. I think that like, if there's anybody interested in learning how to do this, my Bible is How to Draw by Scott Robertson. And he explains all of this. It's like learning math from Einstein. Like, you will learn more than you want to know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, learn it all. Do the big fancy rendering that takes an hour on your own, or takes a day on your own time, and then take away the stuff you don't need. Like, start cheating. Like, you don't have to build every single construction line, like draw out every single plane, erase it, draw over it. Like, you get so comfortable thinking this way and drawing in perspective that you can take shortcuts and just draw the lines that matter. Like you can't, for example, on this coffee pot drawing, see the back of the coffee pot, right? Like you can only see the front of it. So those are the only lines I bother drawing nowadays. Whereas before, if you go all the way back to the video game sketch, you can see through it. It's like an X-ray vision. I was drawing all of it. I was drawing the back of it. I was drawing the other side of the joysticks. I was drawing.
And that almost appeals less to the average person because they can't appreciate maybe like everything that goes into it. They just want to see like the pretty colorful picture.
Yeah.
And now it's crazy because 45 minutes. Like I feel like this is such a sick portfolio. Was it like, did other people push you to like get on Instagram? I know your website's dope too. What is it? Just ryanbiery.com? Yeah,
ryanbiery.com. Some of those time-lapse videos are on YouTube. You can search Ryan Biery time-lapse to see those. But I think that like the catalyst for me, without dragging anybody too hard, was that I was working. My first job after school was in packaging, and it was cool because I like achieved my goal of becoming a professional designer, but it was in a space where like industrial design specifically was the most important thing. It was like a lot of bags and cardboard boxes and tubes and pouches and sleeves, and the real hero of the day was like graphic design and branding. So I just wanted to get to a space where like what I did felt important and like celebrated, and like there was more space for me to like experiment with some of those textures, like I was mentioning on the Jawbox speakers or the grills on the Nest smoke detector, like cool new materials. Like Nike just launched a line of shoes called the Space Hippie that's made out of like chips of recycled plastic that are melted and molded together, and the end result is all speckled and cool looking instead of just the regular paper plastic, like and I think that like in order to get out of that space, it took a lot of energy to like change my trajectory and like build momentum. If something is already traveling in a fixed path, it's going to take external energy to change its trajectory, shift its path. If something's falling, it takes energy to like stop it and throw it up in the air again.
Yeah.
And that's what all of this was. Like I just went through like a couple of years where I was really like not going out, not seeing anybody, like not having fun, just like trying to Hulk out as a designer.
So that packaging, you were like, I got to really buckle down and like get out of this space, and your solution was to just start creating and putting that out there. Is that what it was?
You have to do it for free 1,000 times before somebody pays you to do it. That's been my experience anyway.
Damn. So is that generally like your friends from school? Do they have a similar thing now where they're like, I want to put all this stuff on Instagram or my website or on YouTube, and they're doing it? Or are you unique now because you're more in the freelance realm, so it's more important?
I think it's hard. It's hard, and a lot of times it's not rewarding. Like I got laid off twice in the past year, even after all of this. I think it's worth it. Like I guess that sort of remains to be seen, but like most of the people I went to school with have either gone back to grad school to reposition themselves as like professional big thinkers and like strategists, or they've gone into UX because there's a huge demand for it, and that stuff just prints money because there's almost no investment. Like you pay somebody a salary to develop you an app, and then you can sell it as many times as you want without additional investment. Whereas like if you want to sell 2 computer mice, it's going to cost twice as much as 1 computer mouse. But yeah, I mean, I know a couple people who went down this route. Shout out to Briggs Pierce. He and I were doing the Instagram thing for a while. Connor Benton. Yeah, some people tried it out, but
So here, I realized we didn't have like waters or shit. We got a Coke if you want like liquids or anything like that.
yeah,
by the way.
dude, I would love it.
Yeah, let me grab that.
one. Am I starting to like?
No, I realized I got a little bit thirsty. I'm like, shit.
Cool, thanks.
But so it's mostly, I mean, for example, Henry, who you just met but kind of indirectly know somehow, is he has this app Dunbar, basically his startup company, and they were looking for designers to like get some mock-ups. And I remember I did this too at that startup class that I mentioned. We went to RISD students, but he's like, I can just go on Fiverr or something and get like pretty crazy designs online. Is that something that like RISD students think about? Like, oh, there's a lot of talent overseas and like Fiverr's a good go-to. Is it more pressure there?
Yeah. So just this summer, I started using Upwork to find new clients, and like what I've found is firstly that the best people are in demand. I don't know if they're always going to be in demand. Right now, they're still in demand. And as a result, they're regular people. They want stability. They want a livable income. And so they take full-time jobs. Like, I'm about to remove myself from the freelance environment and take another full-time job for that exact reason. Like, I need health insurance. I need a salary. Like, I want to be able to fix my car, like get tires and shit. The people on so I guess like another valuable experience I can draw on anecdotally is part of my freelance income was subcontracting for a friend of mine who also does freelance, right? And so he's been able to get so much work that he needed help, and he's bummed because I was only able to work with him for like a month, but he was just telling me last night that like, look, man, these good freelancers that can come on and help me are so hard to find because like the ones that are dedicated to freelance and good are really expensive and are generally too busy to work with me. The ones that are dedicated to freelance and available and cheap are generally not good. And the ones that are like affordable, available, and good, it's like they're gonna take a full-time job like in a month or so. Like they're good, so someone's gonna be willing to hire them, and they're not committed to the freelance lifestyle, so they're gonna be picked up pretty quick.
Is that kind of where you would put yourself?
That's where I would. Yeah, I mean, I've been freelance twice recently as a way to make ends meet, I guess. And it both times it was, you know, in short order, I was back to a full-time job. So I guess those people on Fiverr, like, you wonder what's going on there. Like, I think that in a lot of cases they are just, and this makes me really sad. I think this sucks, but they're living in a country with lower pay overall, or like worse labor standards, or like a lower quality of living. And so that just affects what they're able to get by on. And so that companies will pay them as little as possible. So they're willing to accept it because it's what they can get. And so that would be like having somebody in Bangladesh design your app on Fiverr. I think it's important to know, if you choose to do that in a way you're taking advantage of a bad situation. That doesn't mean you can't do it or that people don't. They definitely do. But I guess, I guess that's mostly where I'm coming from. I'm not willing to say that like those people are worse at design or that you're going to get a worse product from them. You might get something great, but I think those people are taking advantage of a bad situation. And then I would add on top of that like, great talent from all over the world is magnetized to these blue chip companies like Google and Facebook and Apple. Like, I am interviewing with one of those Fortune 500 companies right now, and everybody on the team that interviewed me yesterday spoke a different language and was from like Turkey or Cuba or China. Like, world class talent is world class talent. It comes from all over the world. So I don't know. This is a long-winded, rambling answer, but it's sort of a crapshoot, and it's sort of like exploitative, in my opinion. So that's all I can say right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just one of those dilemmas, kind of like your friend had, of like, you can't necessarily afford certain people, and then like this is just an option to get talent abroad. And like, even with our own team, like video editors, they far exceed Henry and I. But like, if you were to do that in the US, it'd be like, there's no way, a startup could afford that sort of stuff. So it's interesting there, but it sounds like most people from RISD generally are going to go to the full-time route for the most part.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, it's like, I guess one of the things I learned is the school doesn't matter as much as I thought it did, especially in the creative field. Like, a lot of the best designers I know went to like University of Illinois at Chicago, or U Cincinnati, or like Cleveland Institute of Art, or like College of Creative Studies in Michigan. And none of those were even on my radar, because all I was looking at was like US News and World Report. Like, what's the best art school? I want to go to that one. And ironically, like, I know a lot fewer RISD grads who are sustaining careers in the fields that they wanted to than I do otherwise. Like, most of the people I work with didn't go to RISD, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
So where did they end up then? I mean, RISD is obviously like, it's a small upper echelon school, so it's unlikely that they'd be there. But like, do they instantly get scooped up by?
No.
Like, what happens to most RISD people in general?
It really depends. I mean, some of them go straight to IDEO or Google or something like that, and most of those people that I'm aware of are still there. Some of them bounce out, like, and have to figure something else out, and they become realtors, or like they do whatever they have to do to pay the bills. Some of them, like me, sort of like limp along in the minor leagues for a while. And I don't know. I'm still young, but
what's like, do people get like a break? Like, you crack into the major leagues, or is it a gradual process and you just hope, you get a lucky break at a larger company one day?
Yeah, I think that's really sort of what it is. Like, people, when they're recruiting right out of college, are basically just investing in potential. So they don't know what's going to happen with you, and they can really only guess based on what you were able to do in those 4 years. And I don't know how they make those decisions. Like, I personally am unable to know what somebody is going to become based on where they are when they graduate. Like,
look at your own sketches, and you're like, I've come so far.
Look at me. Yeah. And so I guess, like, for me, my experience is like, even though like I've been laid off from the 2 full-time jobs I had after college, each new one is at the best company I've ever worked for. Like, so I started at a small privately owned agency in Chicago doing packaging, which isn't very glamorous for an industrial designer. Then my next job was in consumer electronics at a slightly larger privately owned company. And now I'm entertaining multiple offers from Fortune 500 companies that have many staff industrial designers. And every time I've gotten a small raise, every time I am moving to a space that I at least perceive to be more glamorous. So maybe it is a gradual thing. But I also know people that, like, I had never heard of them, and then they get a sick job at like Oculus Rift, like they're designing the next Oculus Rift headset out of nowhere. So I don't.
How hard is it to, when like going through the application process, like, I don't know, competitive wise, are you like, holy shit, there's a lot of talent going for the same thing? Or is it like, I stand out because look at my portfolio and you're more confident? Like going into a Fortune 500 company, where do you think you stand in general?
I think that after you get your 10,000 hours or whatever doing the sketches, like immersing yourself in the world of styling, and you sort of know what people are looking for. Like if you gave me a product category and you said you have a day to come up with something that looks cool, like that would sell in this product category, I would be able to come up with something in the realm of realism, like something realistic, that is executed at a very high level in a day. And then after that, I think the game sort of changes and it becomes more about like how much expertise you have in that specific category. And so in a way, I think that like there is a window where you can level up and you can sort of race everybody to that level of mastery, and you can get there first. And so when I'm looking at the talent pool, like I look around and I'm like, yeah, all these sketches sort of look like mine. Like all the styling sort of looks like mine. All the renderings sort of look like mine. The ideas are all kind of cool. Like I don't think there's, to be honest, I don't think there's much industrial designers can really do to like change the world, set it on fire the way that a lot of people think in school. But yeah, every once in a while you see somebody with like a truly amazing idea. But yeah, I think I'm in the zone. But then the differentiator becomes like, I don't know who these people are. I don't know what their network is. I don't know where they worked before this. I don't know if they like cold called somebody at the company for an informational interview and like built a great relationship, and now this whole thing is like a formality. And then you have to sort of like find those differentiators and just keep fighting and keep clawing for like any little advantage you can have, because there aren't a lot of jobs out there and it's super competitive. And if you don't have the skills, then you're not even in the race.
Do they have you, like you get to one of the final rounds, they're like basically like a mock, you're on a team and a job, and they have you go through all the work, or what is that actually like?
Dude, they do that sometimes, and I hate that. That's called a design challenge, and it's basically like a bunch of extra work that I don't want to have to do. Especially when like the portfolio is a critical component of the application, and you're showing them like, okay, I've done this 15 times.
Right.
Here's the same process executed at the same high level like 15 times. And then they're like, okay, but have you ever designed a keychain before? And then you have to spend the whole weekend sketching keychains. Like most of the time, the serious companies don't ask you to do that. And it's the little guys, the mom and pops that ask you to do something like that. But it happens, and it sucks.
So I guess it's interesting you're talking about like thoughts going into school, kind of what it was like in school, because you thought maybe it'd be easier to change the world as a designer. And then also, I'm sure, like your impression of the importance of RISD versus other schools was different than reality. Plus, did RISD have financial aid, or did you have to? I always forget. Like, were they? Because RISD's expensive as hell,
dude. Yeah. So there's the missing piece of the what happens to RISD people question. A lot of them are fine. You don't need to worry about them. You know what I mean? Right. Like the people who go to RISD and then don't take it seriously and like don't put in all the legwork to like get to the right level. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they're probably fine though. Like they're so RISD does offer like very high interest loans to people, which I think is sort of predatory. And they sometimes even present them as scholarships, which they're not. They're loans that you have to pay back. They don't have any merit-based scholarships. At least they didn't when I went there, which was frustrating. But they do have need-based scholarships, and I have a lot of friends who received a need-based scholarship. So, it's it's a luxury brand, like Brown, like Yale, like Harvard, like it you're paying a premium for the brand.
But it's almost like you didn't know. Like, I feel like Harvard, you can walk and get any job. RISD, it sounded like it was the same, but it's not as much, or it doesn't sound like it as much.
Yeah.
Would you have done things differently looking back now that you're kind of, I don't know, 5 years into the industry?
No, dude, the universe is predetermined. No, I'm kidding. Maybe. I think maybe. I think that if I was going to go back in time and give myself advice, it would be to... and it's not possible for everybody. Not everybody has a clear idea of what they want to do, but you have to be sort of like a consumer of design at first. Like, so that magic piece of hockey gear that I saw in the pro shop, if I had to do over again, I would have figured out who designed that, right? And then figured out where they went to school, where they worked before they were at Nike Bauer, like what is the studio like there? What is their process like? Like, I would have done so much more research into the pipelines. And it's the same thing with hockey. Like, you don't know about all the junior leagues, or at least I didn't. You don't know about all of the different levels of competition, like the different ways to make yourself appealing to higher level teams until it's too late. Or at least that's how it went for me. Like, I didn't know what the USHL was until I was 17.
I didn't realize. So you were actually, like, no joke, you wanted to go far with
hockey,
play serious high level.
I mean, I when I was younger, I definitely wished that I had. But I mean, like, I was just playing for the team that was closest to my house, and the highest level that they offered was AA, and so that's what it was. Like, I wasn't gonna move to a different state, and like, not even saying that I could have, but it's the same thing with design. Like, these pipelines exist. Like, for example, all of the schools in the Midwest have a student merit award that's given out through the IDSA, the Industrial Designer Society of America. And the winner of that award gets whatever job they want. Like, everybody is competing for that kid. And it's not always like the same company, but if you win that award, then you can do pretty much whatever you want. And like, it's possible to win that award. Mm-hmm. It's not the hardest thing in the world. Like, a lot of people don't even submit for it. It's very hard. Like, don't get me wrong, it's hard to win that award. I didn't win that award, but that's also because RISD wasn't in the Industrial Design Society of America. Yeah. There was no, to my knowledge, there was no student merit award in the Northeast the way there was in the Midwest. And so if I had just understood those pipelines better, I would have worked backwards, and I would have been like, okay, let's say I want to work at a studio like Minimal, or I want to be a designer for Chrysler or Ford, or I want to work at Nike. So I want to work at Nike. What do I have to do? I have to go to the University of Oregon. I have to spend 4 years coming up with a killer project that I can submit for that student merit award. I need to win that student merit award, and then I can get the job at Nike. Like, that's the pipeline. Mm-hmm. And instead, I'm just like, everybody, I think, is just sort of reaching around in the dark, self-discovering, exploring, figuring out. And like, RISD's great for that. Like, Providence is a great town for that. And like, that's what I did. And I wouldn't want to give up that experience. But if the goal is to just get the coolest job possible, doing exactly what you want, you got to figure out the pipeline, and you got to go through it.
It's kind of like Brown, for example. I'm into economics, business stuff. Mm-hmm. If I was 100% committed, then I would have gone to Wharton, for example, and just, I know my track in life, and this is the pipeline to get there. Yep. Whereas this is the more exploratory route. And it sounds like RISD was kind of exploratory, whereas you could have hit the pipeline if you went for those awards to get to Nike.
Yeah, 100%.
I guess it's just a different approach, but you didn't really know. Like you might have been better going to the sort of Wharton of the design world because you were so fixated on it.
Yeah, you want to work in the car industry, you go to Art Center in Pasadena. You want to work in or College of Creative Studies. Like you want to work in shoes, you go to University of Oregon. Like and so RISD, like I don't think RISD has that type of relationship with an industry the same way that those schools do. Like those schools are like feeder systems for specific companies and industries.
So now, I guess what is your goal is to just kind of crack into those top companies basically. And like this is your method to go about it is like, well, kind of, it sounds like what's interesting is like you have what seems like a setback on the surface and then you like level up just in the meantime, which kind of happened to me too. And it's just fascinating, but maybe that's the approach. Like work within a company. Well, it's actually, you have to have the industry knowledge sometimes, it sounds like, to really crush it. But
I think so the leveling up, I believe, happened to me because of all the one of the big takeaways I started with is you can do good work anywhere for anyone, even no one. You can do good work for no one. And that's what I did is like, you wouldn't wait to make a masterpiece of an album. You wouldn't wait to learn how to play guitar until you get signed and put on a world tour. Like you have to do it first. Like you have to be worthy of the record deal. You have to be worthy of the world tour before they give it to you. And so, whatever these other companies, thought I was, or whatever they thought that they could let go of, like, like it was probably not relevant to their business, but like that's not what I was working toward. I was working toward being relevant to the business of like the next business, like the one that I want. And so like, I spent a lot of time while I was at Kaleidoscope, like practicing my consumer electronics chops. And they're a packaging design firm. So it's like,
and do they follow you on Instagram too? They're like, Biery, this isn't packaging. What's...
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
But I feel like everyone would probably like, that's not the childhood dream job is packaging.
Dude, you would be shocked.
Right?
People lie to themselves. I remember being in meetings. One of my favorite memories from Kaleidoscope was like, we had this client in who created plastic products for kitchens. So they made like water bottles and like water dispensers that stay in the fridge and like serving bowls and colanders, like strainers. And so we had this workshop where they all came in and we were pulling inspiration images. And this is what I'm talking about. Like we're there to design colanders and I'm in charge of pulling inspiration, and I've got like McLarens, I've got like the coolest new sneakers from Hypebeast, I've got like super premium Leica cameras, I've got like luggage, like just the highest end stuff from all over the world, like custom made furniture, and I'm showing them all this stuff, and they're like, you know what we make, right? Like we're like, this is really cool and premium, but it's not this.
It's not
like,
a colander.
Come back to earth. Yeah. And so then later on in the exercise, they're like, we're trying to figure out what differentiates them so we can design a brand for them and express that in the product design. And we're like, all right, so what differentiates you? What makes you special? And they're like, I would say quality. Like the quality is really good. And everyone says that. Everyone says quality, but it means something different depending on the product and the category. And so I literally asked them, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like quality? What is it? It's a bowl with holes in it. Like what is more or less quality about this? It's not, you're not going mountain climbing with this thing. It doesn't have to go 100 miles an hour. It doesn't need to like, does it work or not? When you put spaghetti in it, does the water come out the bottom?
It's just the function is set. Like,
yeah,
it's the style stuff that's going to add any sort of thing, but like how stylish can you get?
It's quality in the sense that like the plastic doesn't poison you. Like it's edible when you use it. Like they're all, yeah. And so like, that's what I mean when I say I wanted to get out of that space and into a space where like, there would be more pressing questions. Like, yeah, so there's like companies out there that design two-way radios for paramedics, right? Like that has to work. If that doesn't work,
right,
then the ambulance isn't getting there. Like that that's real shit. If I mean, I don't know. There's some stuff that's satisfying as an artist, and there's some stuff that's satisfying functionally, but like I just couldn't do the designing the can that Sloppy Joe sauce comes in anymore. Like I don't, the people buying it don't care. I don't care. Like nobody cares. And I'm like killing myself over this. Like it's my whole job. I have to get up at 6 a.m. to go design something that like literally no one cares about.
Dude,
And
that's I can't even imagine the cognitive dissonance of like, what the fuck am I, like I want to make an impact and, change the function of some important tool.
right.
And it's like,
Sloppy
how much
Joe
innovation
sauce.
can I do here? So,
Yeah. And so like, that's what I'm saying when you're like, yeah, people had to know that this wasn't the dream job. Like when you're lost in the sauce, literally like you can't say, like, I was definitely not free to say these things while I worked there. I feel uncomfortable saying them now because
really?
there's so many people, who like, they're in the Matrix, and you're trying to like, you saying that breaks the simulation.
So they're rationalizing it to himself. Like this
they're
is
like, yeah, what I do is important. Like I'm an executive at sauce.com. Like sorry. Like I'm, yeah, like this is life and death. Like, I traveled to Chicago to redesign this can and like do this sauce right. And they've got numbers and figures and a title and a whole identity and a whole like fragile ego at stake, and you can't deflate that. Especially not if you're working for them. Like, don't seriously.
Did it take them laying you off for you to break out of the Matrix, or did you like?
Yeah, they were always encouraging and like supportive of that. We would talk about it in my reviews and stuff. They would be like, look, you're young and you've got a like 60-year career or something, or 40-year career. It would be bizarre if you spent all 40 of it here. So like, let's be realistic about this. Like, how is this going to help you get the next job? And a lot of the feedback that I got around like professionalism, and like collaboration with my coworkers, or like presentation skills, or like those sorts of things that would be applicable no matter what category I was working in or what firm I was working for, were given to me with that in mind. Like they were like, we're trying to build you into like a career designer. And I still have a good relationship with the founder of the company. Like he is always there if I need advice, or like he always says like, I'm still your boss after I laid you off. But so it is what it is.
So in terms of, I'm trying to think general, like taking what you've learned at RISD and as well, like kind of on your own, what's should people be more aware of like how to ask these good questions? Like, how might I, or like solving these problems.
What jobs to be done.
Like, should more people consider this stuff? Like what do you think is relevant to normal non-designers in the world that just like want to be better at creating whatever sort of new innovation there is, but they haven't had all that experience?
Yeah, those exercises are really, really good for those types of people, because it gives you bite-sized pieces to chew on one at a time, instead of just like, all right, we're designing a motorcycle, go. It has 500 moving parts, go. Like, and so you break it down into smaller questions, like, how do we like get it to move? How do we pedal it? How do we change the tires? How do we stop it? Like, and you can solve them one at a time, and it feels really productive. It feels good, and that's important, not just for like personal gratification, but because it propels you forward. Like, it's important to build confidence and get wins and feel like you're doing something. Because I think for a lot of non-creative people who enter into a brainstorm or start sketching and stuff, the challenge is fear. Like, you're looking at a blank piece of paper, you don't know how to draw. You might be in a room with people who draw professionally, and you're like, oh God, like what?
I'm just drawing stick figures over here, and I'm copy and pasting shit.
What happens now? Yeah, and one of the techniques that my high school art teacher taught me when I was doing like figure drawing with charcoal and stuff is get the paper dirty, like rub some charcoal on it.
Just so it's not blank white.
Yeah, just so it doesn't feel so fresh and precious, and like those types of exercises are really good at like chumming the water. And like you've got some stuff to chew on. And like I was saying earlier about like one thing and then another thing, like I had this idea and then now what about this? And that brings me to this and that gives me this idea. It's those exercises are great at the first step. It's a great place to start. And maybe while you're answering these like how might we questions or you're listing the jobs to be done, you just come up with an idea for like a full-on product. And like don't get that out. Like don't wait until you don't have to follow the exercise like so rigidly that it's like, oh no, it's not time for complete products yet. Like do it, get it out of your system, crystallize it, capture it as a little sketch or a note or something, and then put it off to the side and get back to the exercise. And then when you're done, you've got a whole wall of places to start from. And that's sort of like your dirty piece of paper with some charcoal on it.
I love that one because I hear it even with writing, like you don't want the blank sheet of paper. You can't, I guess if you're writing physically, you could literally just like start doodling or whatever, like just get like things on the page.
Yeah.
But that's I think that's why people love like whiteboards like that or some sort of template where like even you already have the questions you're supposed to ask already there.
Yeah.
And then it's just filling in versus like creating from scratch. So that shit's cool. One thing, Ian, I talked to Ian Lapham and he was like, all right, ask Biery, where the hell do people like him hang out on the internet? Like, do you have a creative Twitter? Are you on Reddit? Like, what is your vibe and where are you?
Instagram is the thing still. I don't think design has moved to TikTok yet. Instagram is the platform of choice, but it can be like all of the same ways that social media is bad for you as a person, like is bad for you as like somebody who wants to think highly of themselves in their life. It's bad for designers too, you know, like, cause you're scrolling and you're seeing 50 sketches and like the video game controllers, some of them might have taken 2 days. You don't know how long they took. You don't know how they were created. You don't know if it's even an original idea. There's people resketching products that currently exist.
So it's making you feel self-conscious, you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's distorting your perception of like what's actually useful to a design process. If you're a professional, it's distorting your sense of like what the going level of quality is, like what's the current industry standard. It's showing you like a million ideas that you didn't have, and maybe you're feeling bad that you didn't think of all this stuff. A lot of this I did for a Instagram challenge called the Weekly Design Challenge, where it gives you a prompt every week, and it's like, all right, this week we're sketch headphones, this week sketch a doghouse, this week sketch a garden hose nozzle. And so I am doing my thing, like it's just for Instagram, so I don't do like a super thorough brainstorm, but I'll do like 5 thumbnail sketches, like come up with a couple different ideas, and then take one all the way to a final polished rendering. And then I post it, and I'm like, all right, well, what's everyone else doing? And I start scrolling through, and I'm like, shit, like these ideas are all so good. I didn't come up with that one. I didn't come up with that one. Like,
right.
And they're all so polished, and they're all so, and it's like, you got to just get off it sometimes. So when I'm not on Instagram doing my design thing, sometimes I'm on Discord. Like there's some design Discords that are pretty cool because you can get really up close and personal with people at really cool companies. Like I spent like 3 hours talking to one of the designers at Oculus Rift, shout out Tim Zarki, because he was just on the same Discord as me. And then Reddit is the GOAT.
I feel like, I think we're at like an hour and a half already, but I think with TikTok, what's interesting, because I sent you that thing of like the girl that made that art piece. I don't know if you remember, but basically like she just took a photo of her art piece and then took one of her with the art piece.
Yeah.
And it was like 100x the engagement as the other one. And that's why I feel like what's cool maybe with like a Vine or something like that is you can get more personality versus just like a photo of your work where it's like you don't get the Biery side. You just get like, this was an artist that made it, but like there's so much personality and just cool character that goes into that. So I feel like that's one, because it's hard to differentiate yourself just on sketches alone.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I have thought a lot about it. The time-lapse videos were an attempt at that. Like, I tried to bring some music into it. I think that like one of the things we haven't talked about yet that's critical to design is point of view. Like we're always encouraged, no matter what we're doing, to have a point of view. And I have all kinds of points of view. I so rarely express them in my design because it seems like the nature of being a working professional is sort of like expressing their point of view. It's like, all right, so we've got this brand, we've got this company culture, we've got this consumer, and like their point of view should always take priority over mine. And like we have to make sure that the customer feels like we're on their side and that this feels like an authentic expression of the company culture and that it's fitting within the brand. But with this personal stuff, like, I mean, some of this stuff is just crazy. Like,
what?
Look at this doghouse. You may not have even realized this was a doghouse.
Oh shit!
Like that's the type.
Dude, that looks like the front of a bullet train.
Yeah, exactly. And so like those colors, like the blue and the red, like I made the caption for the only friend you can trust. Like I was in my emo feelings at that time. I mean, like I try to let it shine through, but I feel like the issue with some of this stuff is it's just the creation is so boring. Like you don't want to see a guy sitting at his tablet. I mean, maybe there's something I could do where I like go to the mall and like pick products up and critique them, and break them down. Like what makes this a successful product? Like,
dude, I would love that shit. Like that's what I'm so fascinated by, just creators that take a new spin on anything else. And like, for example, the guy, I don't know if you've seen him maybe on Instagram, but he'll go up to people and he's like, he makes them a model by just taking really nice photos of them, or like, doing breakdowns of just cool designs that break the mold in some way. Like that shit would be so cool. Yeah, maybe. And I feel like that's the hack is like, because it does seem like there's a decent amount of networking to really separate yourself and like crack into the best companies and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm not even on TikTok. I just see Henry scrolling through it every night and he sends me good shit. And I'm like, I'd be so addicted. But like doing a TikTok just like that, I feel like that's how you really would blow up in a way that separates yourself.
And I think that it is like generally when I meet new people and I talk to them about what I do and the fact that like for any of these products, someone designed it. They're always like, of course, of course, I just never thought about it before.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like the man behind the curtain.
Everyone loves the behind the, like that, how I built this sort of shit, or like whatever the how-to shows. Like I would love, I want to fucking peer pressure you into doing this, because I just be your number one consumer. Like if you did that, just Instagram videos even. Yeah. Of just like, I don't know how interesting a Coke bottle or like can is, but like something that's actually interesting that you're like, oh, I'm sure people don't know what goes into making something like this, and I do. Dude, that shit would be cool on a portfolio, because this is cool, but I'm sure there are a good amount of people that do something like this.
Oh yeah, like many. And the other thing is it's just so time intensive, you know, like
Right.
to come up with an idea takes time before you even start sketching it, and then, you know, sketching it, rendering it to the point where it'll stand out in a feed it takes time. And I mean, yeah, like, I mean, I would love to just talk about other people's shit. And
Dude, look how many fucking cameras we have. You know, we'll get a little YouTube channel for you. Just do a little Biery breakdowns of all the cool design. This could be your studio. You come in, we'll put a tarp over Smart Nonsense so you don't get your. But that'd be so sick. Just come and like, here's the product we're talking about today. You're 5 minutes away, and just we'll fucking make a YouTube channel.
Down every time there's a new shoe. Be like,
I'm serious. This might sound like a joke, but I'd love if you just come here like whatever, a couple times a week, once a week, whatever, and do some. We can fucking make some content. But
yeah, that would be cool. I should think about it. Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that I hadn't had that idea before, and I think you gave me the inspiration.
Man, I would be so excited. That's kind of like everyone that comes on the podcast. I'm like, dude, you're already creating. Like, let's just ramp it up to the next level and like really make Ryan Biery stand out in the design world. And then who knows, you do like 100 of these shoe breakdowns.
Yeah.
And now you come to a shoe company like a Nike and they're like, holy shit, this Biery kid is a fucking
what he's talking
beast.
about,
Look at this. And I feel like that's how you stand out in the modern age of designers. But
yeah, there's also guys who will be like, you know, everybody's disappointed with the new BMW M3. The grill is too big, so I'm gonna try my best at it. Like, you know, instead of this, it could have been this. And people always get so stoked on that because they're like, why didn't BMW hire this guy? This it could have been this. And it's like, no, it could. No, you don't know what's going on at BMW, like why it is this way. Like, there's so many variables and so many levers. Like, when you give somebody unilateral decision-making authority, the vision is always pure. But it's cool. It's cool to think about. I like looking at concept cars.
yeah, I mean, that, who knows? I think everyone recognizes like you got to have that checks and balance, like we were talking about earlier, to really set the structure in place. But who knows? This will be here in case you want to do something. I'm gonna peer pressure you after we turn off. But anything else we should cover? Design, creatives, life.
The Cybertruck is an outrage. You shouldn't like it.
All right, wait, real quick, because that is interesting. So most people hate it at first, then started to love it, but you still hate it?
Dude, I hate it. I hate it. And it's to the point now where I hate the people who like it. It's just not well done. It's a couple things. First of all, like, the whole vibe that it has been pointy and silver, has been done a gazillion times, going all the way back to like the 60s. Like, look at the DeLorean, look at like the Lancia Delta, look at like any, like the car James Bond drove that had could go underwater, the Aston Martin Bulldog. Like, that whole vibe. Look at the Toyota Mr. 2 from the 90s. Look at the Pontiac Fiero. Like, they're not, to treat them as if they're breaking some new ground by coming up with a pointy silver future car. It's the most hackneyed cliche bullshit I've ever seen. And then on top of that, it's not even done well. Like, the proportions are weird. The intersecting surfaces are very weird. Like, look at the trunk when it hinges down is like trapezoid shaped because they didn't think it through. They only designed it in the upright position, and then they just sliced it and made it hinge. And dude, all of it sucks. It's not going to pass safety regulations, even as bad as it is right now. So it's going to become even more of a compromise when they manufacture it. And it just shows me that, like, so many people have never looked at a car critically before. I think it's shocking. And the fact that it's shocking has made people like actually analyze this product aesthetically, like the way that they wouldn't a Toyota Camry or like a Ford Taurus or a Chevy pickup truck. Like, they're like, oh wow, like, cars are designed. Like they have styling. You know, I can tell because this it's so in your face. Like you can't ignore the styling choices that they made. So you have to have an opinion about it. But I mean, that doesn't mean it's good. It's like if you served me a meal that was just covered in hot sauce, I would be like, yeah, this has flavor. It's not what I want.
It's making me question hot sauce in proportions like never before, but
yeah, completely.
not in a good way.
Yeah.
Dude, I would love that should be episode 1. Fuck it. Just shitting on Tesla and the Cybertruck.
All the other Teslas are great. I love what they did with the Model 3. They finally got rid of the grill. Thank you, because electric cars don't need grills. The Model S is all right. But that Cybertruck.
Hey, so Biery, can I ask you what would keep you back from doing, like, all your personality needs to be in your content? Like, what would keep you back from, like, what scares you about talking like this on a channel or something like that?
It's like I said. I mean, the job is like a client designer relationship.
So like this guy comes into the company.
I become the hot sauce. That's my fear. It's like I don't want. I mean, if it's really good and enough people like it, then it can work for you. Like Kareem Rashid or Philip Stark. There are like celebrity designers that get hired because of who they are. But it's risky. I mean, if I just start pissing people off and talking shit, then. It's.
I guess you're going for the corporate environment where like that's generally frowned upon. Like this is just who knows what Ryan's gonna do on the job.
I can keep my mouth shut for those employers listening. You know, I'm a really good subordinate, I promise.
But that's the thing. I hate like when people can't be authentic to themselves because like these pressures. Like that's where all the cool shit is designed, and that's where the money is. And like you can't be Ryan Biery 100, or you can. Obviously, different sides to people, but like even myself, I hate censoring myself, and that's why I couldn't work at certain larger companies. But maybe there's a way to find best of both worlds. I don't know, but Cybertruck, any other shit that really grinds your gears that people like right now?
Let me think. I mean, that one was just like, Jesus, dude. The Cybertruck is so outrageously bad. Well,
we'll
got so much positive attention. I want to think of another one to talk shit about, but I can't right now.
I'm sure it'll come up, and then we'll add it somewhere. But awesome, Biery. Is there anything else that we're missing, or you want to shoot out to the world?
Like and subscribe. Smash that like button.
There it is. All right, to my channel, Smart Nonsense, to Biery's everywhere. What is it? R.Biery
R.Biery
on Instagram, and then ryanbiery.com. We'll link all that stuff, and we'll mention it at the beginning. But Biery, I fucking love catching up. So
yeah, you too.
I feel like we should shake hands. This is literally the first time we've had a real guest on the pod in the new studio. So broke it in. All right, thanks, Biery.